There comes a moment in every man's life, a quiet, soul-splitting moment, when the illusions begin to crack, when the things he once chased with everything he had, love, companionship, the dream of a future shared with someone, suddenly don't feel as solid as they once did. You look back at those memories, the ones where someone whispered promises of forever, of understanding, of connection, and you start to wonder, was any of it real? Or was it all just a beautifully packaged lie? Arthur Schopenhauer didn't just ask that question. He ripped the entire idea apart. He looked deep into the dark machinery of human desire and refused to flinch. Where others saw romance as a blessing, a salvation, Schopenhauer saw something far more dangerous, a seduction by nature itself, a trap. To him, what most people call love was nothing more than delusion. Intimacy? Biology, dressed up in fantasy. And connection? Suffering, cleverly disguised. You see, Schopenhauer believed that the fundamental difference between men and women wasn't just physical, it was metaphysical. Men, he said, are drawn to ideas, to philosophy, to higher purpose and creation. But women, they're wired for survival, grounded in the practical, anchored in the immediate. In his words, brutal as they may sound, women remain children their whole lives, not because they lacked value, but because they see only what's in front of them, the surface, the now, the present moment. What looks good is what is good. That's the lens they see the world through. And for Schopenhauer, this wasn't a condemnation, it was nature functioning exactly as intended. So what then is beauty? According to Schopenhauer, it's a mask, a lure, a perfectly crafted illusion designed to pull men away from their higher purpose, a biological bait that seduces, disarms, and captures. He didn't see a beautiful woman as a gift to the world, but as a force of nature sent to weaken judgment, to distract a man from his mission, to enslave him, not with chains, but with longing. And the crazy part? It works. Over and over again. History is full of examples. Great men, builders of empires, warriors of principle, geniuses who shaped the world didn't fall to weapons or politics or failure. They fell to a smile, a soft touch, a promise they thought was love but never truly understood. Why? Because Schopenhauer said women don't need brute strength to win. They've mastered something entirely. Influence, not on battlefields, but in bedrooms, in households, in the emotional architecture of men. While men go out and build the world, women shape the men who build it, not with commands, but with charm, with subtlety, with need. Society, of course, doesn't talk about it that way. We call it love, romance, sacred, beautiful. But to Schopenhauer, it was something else entirely. A transaction dressed up in poetry, a biological imperative wrapped in vows and church bells. Love, he wrote, is not what it seems. It's not soulmates meeting at the right time. It's not fate pulling two hearts together. It's not destiny. It's biology, the will to life, as he put it, acting blindly through us to continue the species. It doesn't care about your happiness, your goals, your peace. It only cares that you reproduce. And to get that done, it hijacks your mind. It feeds you fantasies. It whispers in your ear that this time it's different, that this one's real. And by the time the illusion starts to fade, you've already handed over everything. For Schopenhauer, marriage wasn't a sacred bond. It was the final trap, the culmination of nature's great trick, a contract disguised as commitment, a structure built on hope but often paid in regret. Once a man falls into that spell, Schopenhauer believed, he stops being free. He works, he provides, he sacrifices, not for glory or meaning or greatness, but to sustain a machine that slowly drains him. And when the beauty fades, when the sparkle wears off, what's often left is silence, resentment, disillusionment. A man who used to chase truth now chases comfort. A man who once lived for meaning now lives for maintenance. That's not hate, that's warning. Schopenhauer didn't see women as villains, but as agents of nature, unconscious, instinctive players in a game designed not by society, but by evolution. Their goal? Security, survival. And for that, they develop tools, not muscles, not logic, but emotional mastery, intuition, influence. And most men don't see it coming. They step into that emotional battlefield carrying nothing but logic. They think reason can win, that clarity of thought is enough, but they're not in a war of ideas. They're in a war of instincts, and they're losing. Because when you don't understand the forces at play, you become a pawn. You build the house, but it isn't really yours. You work the job, but someone else spends the money. You dream the dreams, but they're diluted to fit someone else's expectations. And here's the cruelest part. You convince yourself this is fulfillment, that this is what you were meant to do, that giving up your time, your passion, your solitude, that this is maturity, that this is love. But underneath all of that is a whisper, a quiet ache, a voice that says, something's off, something's missing. And that voice, that's the man you used to be, the one who dreamed freely, thought boldly, lived with fire. Schopenhauer's message wasn't one of bitterness, it was one of brutal clarity. He stripped away the stories, the fantasies, the nice-sounding lies, and what he saw beneath it all was a system, a pattern, nature doing what it does best, surviving, using whatever tools it must to keep going, even if that means turning men into laborers of their own illusions. He believed that most men don't get broken by war, or poverty, or failure, but by love, or more accurately, by the illusion of love, the dependency, the slow surrender, the death of dreams disguised as responsibility. Women, he said, rarely demand obedience. Men offer it. They rarely ask for sacrifice. Men volunteer it. And that's where the erosion begins. First, it's the time you used to give to your passions. Then it's the fire you had for your craft. Then it's your stillness, your solitude, your clarity. One by one, those pieces fall away, until you're no longer standing, you're kneeling. Not out of reverence, but out of resignation.
You see, this isn't about becoming cold or bitter. It's about waking up. Because while the world might praise this quiet surrender, calling it growth or adulthood, Schopenhauer dared to ask a different question. What if this isn't growth at all? What if it's decay? What if the man who lets go of his fire isn't becoming better, but just disappearing? Schopenhauer believed the truly awakened man doesn't fall for appearances. He doesn't chase illusions just because the world tells him that's where happiness lives. He doesn't hate love, but he sees it clearly, for what it is, for what it costs. And most importantly, he guards his soul from being consumed by fantasies that promise heaven but deliver cages. This isn't about isolating yourself forever. It's about awareness, about stopping long enough to ask, am I still the man I set out to be? Or did I trade in that man for someone more agreeable, someone more safe? Most men never ask, because asking is uncomfortable. It rattles the stories they've built their lives around. The story that says love will complete you, that marriage is a milestone, that sacrificing your truth is noble. But Schopenhauer never wrote for the comfort seekers. He wrote for the few, for the ones who've suffered enough to start questioning, the ones who've been burned by romance and now crave truth more than affection. To those men he offered a mirror, not to shame them, but to wake them. Because once you see the game for what it is, you're not angry anymore. You're alert, you're present, You stop playing a role written for you by evolution or society or well-meaning people who never ask their own questions. And here's the hard part. Once you see clearly, you can't unsee. That's why Schopenhauer placed the philosopher, not the husband, not the warrior, as the highest form of man. Because the philosopher is awake. He doesn't get swept away by applause or romance or promises. He stands still in the silence. He watches. He studies. He asks the question no one wants to hear. Is this real, or is it just survival in disguise? He pointed to the great men who walked alone, not because they were unlovable, but because they refused to trade their clarity for comfort. Buddha, the Stoics, saints, sages. These weren't broken men. They were free. They understood that peace doesn't come from being loved. It comes from not needing to be loved. They saw through the mirage of romantic salvation and chose something deeper: wisdom, stillness, inner power. And in that solitude, they didn't weaken, they strengthened. Because solitude, real conscious solitude, isn't loneliness, it's power. It's the space where truth speaks loudest. But this path, it's not for everyone. Most will reject it. Society will call it sad, bitter, even toxic. Because when you step out of the illusion, it threatens those still inside it. People don't want to be reminded that the dream might not be real. And so they'll say, "What's wrong with you? Don't you believe in love? Don't you want a family? Don't you want to be happy?" Of course you do. But on your terms, not theirs, not nature's, not society's. Because here's the truth: a man who doesn't understand his desires is ruled by them. A man who doesn't understand women is vulnerable to them. And a man who builds his identity around the promises of love will watch that identity fall when those promises break. Schopenhauer wasn't telling men to hate love. He was telling them to stop worshiping it, to stop treating it like a religion, to stop sacrificing their purpose at its altar. He challenged every man to ask, "Are you awake, or are you still dreaming someone else's dream?" This is about loving differently, loving your mind, loving your purpose, loving the silence that speaks when everything else goes quiet. Because when a man can sit with himself and not feel hungry, not for a woman, not for validation, not for applause, that's the man who can't be controlled. That's the man who is truly free. And if you're watching this and something inside you is stirring, if there's a part of you that feels exposed, unsettled, don't run from it. Sit with it. Let it burn through the lies. Let it strip away the stories you were fed, the ones that told you who you had to be loved, to be enough, to be whole. You were never meant to live in chains wrapped in affection. You were never meant to die in a life built on quiet compromise. You were meant to see, to stand, to rise, not because someone told you to, but because you remembered who you are. Let this be your mirror, not to shame the world, but to stop being fooled by it, because once you see through it, everything changes. The spell breaks. You wake up, and then you choose differently.
So what does it look like to choose differently? It means standing still when the world screams chase. It means choosing solitude over superficial affection. It means asking better questions before you give your soul away to something that looks like love but might just be longing in disguise. This isn't a manifesto against women. It's a message for men. Not to reject connection, but to understand it. Not to avoid love, but to love with eyes open. To love without giving up your edge, your mission, your voice. Because here's the raw truth. If you don't define who you are, something or someone else will. And it won't always be malicious. Sometimes it's someone who genuinely cares. But even that, if left unchecked, can become a leash tied to your freedom. The danger isn't always in the obvious. It's in the subtle. It's in the slow fade of your ambitions. It's in the quiet surrender of your time. It's in the voice that used to shout purpose, now whispering, maybe next year. And that's how men disappear, not with a crash, but with a sigh. They disappear into routines, into compromises, into lives that look perfect on the outside, but feel empty on the inside. And the world claps. Good man, they say. He grew up, they say. He settled down, they say. But no one asks, did he sell out? Schopenhauer did. He saw the cost. He measured it in purpose lost, dreams buried, and freedom traded for comfort that never quite satisfied. He didn't write for applause. He wasn't trying to be popular. He was trying to be honest. And that's why his work still echoes today, because deep down, a lot of men feel it, the quiet itch, the subtle pain, the sense that they've traded something sacred for something safe, that they've built a life that keeps them secure but small. And maybe you felt it too, that hunger to build, to think, to wander, to be more than someone's provider or protector or emotional anchor. Those roles aren't wrong, but they're incomplete if they come at the cost of who you truly are. Schopenhauer's warning wasn't a rejection of connection. It was a rejection of unconscious living, a call to men to see through the roles, the expectations, the rituals, and decide for themselves, who am I really? Because once you see the machinery beneath romance, once you understand the nature of desire and the way biology pulls your strings, you stop blaming others. You stop being angry at women. You stop being bitter toward love. You get wise. You become grounded. You gain power, not over others, but over yourself. And that's the shift. That's when you go from being a pawn to being a player. From being a servant of your urges to being a servant of your truth. It doesn't mean you never fall in love. It means you don't fall asleep in love. You stay awake. You hold the line. You remember your path, even when someone whispers promises of forever. Because here's what Schopenhauer knew, and what many men learned too late. The world will always try to trade your power for approval. And if you don't guard that power, you'll hand it over with a smile, thinking it's love. So ask yourself, what are you chasing, and why? Whose dream are you living? Are you building for purpose or for applause? And most importantly, can you sit alone with yourself and feel whole? Because the man who can do that is dangerous. Not to society, not to women, but to the systems that thrive on blind obedience, to the illusions that feed on your need to be needed. The man who doesn't hunger for validation can't be manipulated. The man who knows who he is doesn't bend when affection is withheld. The man who walks alone, if he must, walks in truth. That's the power of solitude. That's the gift of awareness. And that's what Schopenhauer wanted you to see. So if this message struck a chord, if it made you uncomfortable or woke something inside you, that's a good thing. Don't push it away. Sit with it. Let it ask questions. Let it unravel the narratives you've inherited but never examined. You don't need to reject love, but you do need to love yourself enough to question it, to see it not as salvation, but as something that must fit into your mission, not replace it. Because you were not born to be consumed. You were born to create, to lead, to think, to be. So don't die in a life of quiet regret just because it was comfortable. Don't lose your fire to someone else's smile. Don't shrink your soul to make someone else feel safe. Let this truth be your reset. Let it challenge you. Let it free you. Because once you remember who you are, no illusion can hold you. And once you stop chasing love blindly, you start choosing it wisely. You stop needing it to save you and start recognizing it for what it is, a powerful force, one that must be met with strength, not surrender. So if this video stirred something in you, don't let it fade. Like the video, share it with someone who needs to hear what no one ever told them, and subscribe for more truth, not the easy kind, but the kind that wakes you up. And if you want to go deeper to support this message, check the links in the description or join the channel. Your support keeps this conversation alive for the men who are finally ready to stop dreaming and start seeing. Because yes, the truth will set you free, but first, it will shatter everything you thought you knew.